Welcome back to Facts Repo, where we uncover the truth behind the stories you thought you knew. Today, we're diving deep into a tale many of us grew up with, but the version we saw on screen was a sanitized fantasy. The Disney movie painted a picture of romance and harmony, a fairy tale for the ages. But the reality of Pocahontas' life, whose real name was Matoaka, was far from a storybook adventure. Her story is not one of love, but of tragedy, a stark reminder of the brutal beginnings of colonial America. We're going to peel back the layers of the legend and reveal the heartbreaking truth. Matoaka was a young girl, perhaps only 10 or 11 years old, when English settlers arrived in 1607 to establish the Jamestown colony. She was the daughter of Wahansankaw, the powerful chief of the Powhatan Confederacy, an alliance of numerous Algonquian-speaking tribes in the region they called Senekamaka. The settlers, ill-prepared for the harsh realities of the New World, struggled to survive. They faced starvation, disease, and their own incompetence, quickly becoming dependent on the Powhatan people for food and survival. It was during this time that Captain John Smith, a key figure in the colony, was captured by Wahansankaw's men. Smith's own account, written years later, describes a dramatic rescue where Matoaka threw herself over him to save him from execution. However, many historians question this version of events. It's more likely that Smith was part of a ritual, a ceremony meant to adopt him into the tribe and establish a relationship between the Powhatan and the English. The rescue was likely a symbolic act, not a literal one, and certainly not the romantic gesture Disney portrayed. The relationship between the settlers and the Powhatan was fraught with tension and mistrust. The English demanded food, and when it wasn't freely given, they often took it by force, leading to skirmishes and a cycle of violence. Matoaka served as an occasional ambassador between her people and the struggling colony, but this was a role dictated by her father, not a whimsical choice. She was a child navigating a complex and dangerous political landscape. The period of relative peace, often called the Pocahontas Peace, was fragile and short-lived. After John Smith returned to England following an injury, relations deteriorated completely. The settlers' demands grew, and so did the violence. In 1613, when Matoaka was around 17 years old, the English saw an opportunity. She was lured onto an English ship under false pretenses and kidnapped by Captain Samuel Argall. Argall's plan was to use her as a high-value hostage, to ransom her for English prisoners, stolen weapons, and a large amount of corn. Her father, Wahansankaw, met some of the demands, but the English were not satisfied and refused to release her. Matoaka was held captive in Jamestown for over a year. During this time, she was under immense pressure to assimilate to English culture. She was instructed in Christianity and taught the English language. This was not a gentle education, it was a systematic effort to erase her identity. Surrounded by her captors and far from her family and people, she was in a position of complete powerlessness. It was during her captivity that she met John Rolfe, a tobacco planter. The English narrative, including Rolfe's own letters, frames their subsequent marriage as a love match that brought peace between the two peoples. But we must look at the circumstances. Matoaka was a prisoner of war. She had no real choice in the matter. The marriage was a political tool, a strategic move to secure an alliance and legitimize the English presence on Powhatan land. For her to be married, she had to convert. She was baptized and given the Christian name Rebecca. This act symbolized her complete conversion, her shedding of her savage identity to become civilized in the eyes of the English. The marriage did bring a temporary truce, the Peace of Pocahontas. But it was a peace bought with the freedom and identity of a young woman. She was now Rebecca Rolfe, wife of an Englishman, her connection to her past severed. In 1616, the Virginia Company of London decided to use her for a propaganda tour. They sponsored a trip to England for John Rolfe, their son Thomas, and Lady Rebecca. Her presence in England was a marketing campaign. She was paraded before the English court and society as a tamed savage, living proof that the native people could be civilized and converted to Christianity. She was an exotic curiosity, a symbol meant to justify the colonial project and encourage more investment and settlement in Virginia. She met King James I and Queen Anne and was treated as visiting royalty, but it was all part of the performance. During her time in London, she was reunited with John Smith, whom she had been told was dead for years. Accounts of their meeting suggest it was tense and emotional. She reportedly rebuked him for the poor treatment her people had received from the English. She felt betrayed, not just by Smith, but by the entire English project that had cost her so much. The life she was living was a lie, a role she was forced to play for an audience that saw her as a symbol, not a person. After about a year in the polluted, crowded environment of 17th century London, her health began to fail. The Rolfe family prepared to return to Virginia in 1617. But they never made it. As their ship began its journey down the River Thames, Matoaka became gravely ill. She was taken ashore at the town of Gravesend, where she died. She was only about 21 years old. The official cause of death is unknown, though theories range from pneumonia or tuberculosis to smallpox. Whatever the specific illness, her body, accustomed to the open lands of Virginia, could not withstand the diseases of Europe. Her story doesn't end there. Her young son, Thomas, was too ill to make the voyage back and was left behind in England to be raised by an uncle. He would not return to the land of his mother's birth until he was a young man. Matoaka, renamed Rebecca, was buried in an English churchyard, thousands of miles from her home and her people. A life that began in freedom ended in captivity, used as a pawn in the clash of two worlds. The Disney movie ends with Pocahontas choosing to stay with her people as John Smith sails away, a bittersweet but hopeful conclusion. The reality is that she was stolen from her people, her name was changed, and she died far from home after being used as a propaganda tool. Her story is a powerful and tragic example of the human cost of colonization. It's a story of resilience in the face of overwhelming force, but ultimately, it is a story of loss of freedom, loss of identity, and loss of life. By remembering Matoaka's true story, we honor her and gain a more accurate understanding of the complex and often brutal history of early America. The fairy tale is entertaining, but the truth is far more important. Thank you for joining us on Facts Repo. If you found this video enlightening, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the facts behind the fiction.